Okay, we're on West Coast. You have your handouts in front of you guys. If you want to go ahead and start looking over it, I would recommend looking over the addressing the issues, mitigating future challenges, population and growth trends. Look at that first. Second, I would look at property taxes, and then third, I'd look at master fee schedule. Those are the first three out of the gate. You can hand those out, Megan, when you get that to the city commissioners. We know he's not prosecuting because the judge is here, so we can't use that excuse. budget to create a worksheet like 2:30 or 3 on Friday, and Joel and I saw some errors that need to be fixed, and so we had to resubmit to the town collector's office, waiting for the new sheet. So I'll go over these breakdowns in there. One of them is the new budget package. That's the ZU.
I did.
Nobody in the audience spoke up for you. That's what you did.
Not surprisingly.
No, you didn't. We haven't started here, so Paul's running a couple minutes. Kelsey's sick.
Oh, you texted me, yeah, but
Gotta make sure you know where you're supposed to be. We will go. Sean behind me. Pretty good. We're gonna go live already. Okay, we're already live. Just so you know. It's almost 10 after. Go ahead. Can we shut the door, please? Sure. Oh. On the way, already.
I've got a new name for you.
What his wife calls it. On the way, already. I told you that you were on the way already. Yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and take off then with our budget work session for 2021-22. With that, we'll go ahead and call it to order here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's go ahead and get started. We got about 75 minutes to get through, so we're going to try to get most of this stuff taken care of. So I've got an agenda for everybody over here. We're going to try to be strict on that. Obviously, it's our first budget work session, so there's going to be probably another work session at least before we're all set up, maybe even two. Most of the stuff I'm aimed at today is high level. I have senior staff and supervisors behind me to answer questions if y'all have them. We may not get that far into the weeds today on expenses at this point, so I'm not expecting to get that far in the weeds. However, there are some high items to be discussed. So, Paul, I'm sorry, you got something? So to get it started, I just want to thank staff and our finance director and administration for getting all this together. Obviously, this is the one thing where we all come together to get it done. And so I enjoy doing the budget. Maybe it's Joel and I are nerdy, but Mr. Wright has really taken the lead on the budget this year. He's working on more of the line item budget while I'm working on the budget book itself. But it's been very good this year. Staff has been great. They've been really well getting that in place. And so it was a lot more routine this year than it was last year. Making some changes. There wasn't very many changes made this year. I don't think any. Just update and resubmit. So the first question I want to get out of the gate. One of the questions we always ask ourselves as city staffers and public servants, and so I direct this directly to the board here. What does the city of Canyon offer? What kind of services do we offer? And two, what is your expectation of our service level? That is always on the forefront of the staff's mind. It has become clear that service level is a high priority for the city commission as well as administration. But that's one thing I'm going to throw it out there. It's not rhetorical, but what kind of services we offer? So I'll start out with one. One of the services we offer is trash pickup. In addition to that, we offer bulk, free bulk for the first 2,000 pounds, I think, to go to the landfill at no charge. So what other services do y'all know that we offer? I'm going to throw it to you, Gary.
Well, one of my is, I think our level at parks where Amarillo is trying to get to now, I think we've taken steps in our parks that I think are, at a higher level than what they are here. So I think that's a service that, I think if you go out and look at Brown Road right now and kids playing out on those fields, that's pretty tremendous and all. And so I think our residents, young families would put a high priority on some of those things, too. But there's more cost to do some of those things.
Cody?
fire department said.
Paul?
Water, water,
Randy, they're starting to take them down. What do you think?
golf course.
Golf course. So, there's probably another 10 that we can add in there, including, one of the things that we brought on our public information, is having information more readily available to our citizens. It's the day of the newspapers are over. We are, information service, trying to get out notice of feedback, notifications, zoning's a service, building safety, improved road system, improved drainage system. We don't have public transportation, but some cities do offer that. Those are a lot of the services that we live and breathe staff-wise every single day. And so, we feel that the expectation of our service level is to be the highest. Like Gary says, we expect to have really good parks. We have an incredible aquatic park. Southeast Park's incredible. Brown Road has been a really nice addition over the last 5 years. So I think parks has really gone up. And that's one thing getting into the budget, we got to ask ourselves, what is the level of service that our citizens expect? What do we expect as an organization? So I always thought that was a good way to get us started, because staff really bleeds that every day. The other big one we got coming in is mitigating some future challenges. So if you'll look over your handouts, let's look at the population and growth trends. So that's the one with the bar charts. Cornelius, thank you for wherever you are for doing this work there. Or Danny. Danny provided this for our budget this year. Did an outstanding job. And so one of the things that is a challenge is growth and population growth. And so Danny used the UTSA's demographer. That's he and I feel really good about those statistics. They're a little better oriented for Canyon, Texas. But you can see the population growth in the last 10 years and then what he's expecting in the next 10 years. The growth for Randall County, and I think that's just rural, right, Danny? Correct. Just the rural areas of Randall County is 15.5% over 2010 to 2020. The city of Canyon growth is 22.6% over 2010 to 2020. And then our utility connections has been about 15.2% over that same period. So, Danny's basically done some statistical analysis. What do you call it, Danny? Delineate? No, but what did you call it?
I don't think we discussed that here.
A type? Calculate. He calculated. He calculated what it would look like in the year 2030 with populations. And so there's two sets of populations here. One's if we do the current Canyon growth rate at 22.6%, and the other one's if it goes to the Randall County rural growth rate. So you got two. Right now we're on par for the 22.6%, looking at 2030 having 20,000 residents. And then we also, one thing that's a big factor that we overlook sometimes is how many utility connections and water and sewer connections we have. And you can see from 2010 to now, we've gone up almost 1,000. We got 5215 right now that Lee ran us. We've gone almost 1,000 new utility connections since 2010. So that's a big growth factor, and it's had us to require more staff in utilities as well as in the business office. But you can see the onward growth trend from 2020 to 2030. So obviously with increased population, there's trends. The city organization has to grow with the population, and so we can't not grow with the steady growth of population. So that's the first thing on looking at future challenges. The second one that I want to look at is called addressing the issues. This is the elephants in the room that we look at. And so there are 4 main points in here that I have here, and I've got some detail behind them, but I'll just name the questions. How can we maintain our current service levels and expanding service area, population growth, with minor increases to current or future revenues? That's always a challenge for any and every city, more so out in West Texas, being that we're very conservative-centric. Second, how will the city handle expansion of utility infrastructure that are needed as Canyon and Randall County areas continue to grow? Obviously, more growth, more expansion of water towers, lift stations, pump stations. Those are inevitable. That only our 2 towers or 3 towers only cover so much pressure. If we continue to grow, more likely, you need another tower, you need another lagoon. So that's a big factor we're chasing right now is development. And is a political one at its best, but I kind of go into that. One of the things that I've been talking with some senior staff, how will the city best prepare and implement succession planning of senior staff retirements and attrition? It's no future predicament that, I've got 6 senior staff members that will retire in the next 1 to 5 years. And so most of them are in this room. And I've already had 4 senior staff members turn over since I've been here. And so within 6 years, I'll replace 75% of senior staff in 5 years. That's a lot. In the 6 that are probably going to retire in the next 5 to 6 years, I'm losing 100 years of service in those 6 people. So I won't name them out loud, but they know who they are. But that's something I have to look at as city manager moving forward. I can say the 4 I've had so far that we've brought on, Mr. Wright, Hector, Megan's a new one that I didn't even include. Let's see who else is there. Police Chief Steve Brush and our Fire Chief Dennis Quinn. We've hired some dang fine senior staff members since I've been here, and I'm very happy with those individuals coming on. They've added value to our team, but I've got 6 more I got to prepare for in the future. 100 years of historical knowledge, 100 years of service is a big thing. It's a big thing to this organization as we continue to grow as an organization. The next one is how will the city handle the need for new staffing positions and facility needs in the future with limited revenues? Very similar to the first one, but these are some of the big challenges that the commission and city senior staff have to face every day as we move forward as an organization and as a community. So y'all can see the details. I won't go through and read all the details, but y'all can read that. The last one I've been talking to a few of you on as of late, and someone that we're all living and breathing, is my page called Mitigating Future Challenges. This one I'll read probably more than the rest. Right now, it is a challenge with supplies. I've visited with our engineer on a lot of these and trying to get these, but we have a significant rise in cost. PVC pipe for utility projects is 3 to 4 times normal cost with limited supply. Steel and metal, 2 to 3 times normal cost, limited supply. Lumber, 2 to 3 times, limited supply. Concrete's up 30% with moderate supply. One of the big ones is the automated automated water meters are in limited supply. Crushed stone and aggregate chip seal. I'm lucky we got our chip seal done. They were really struggling to get the rock. In addition to these that the city's facing, I put a little caveat that our contractors and our subs and our home builders and commercial and developers, they're also facing these hard consequences. Those individuals and outfits play a huge role in our local economy, and those can't be negated from that. So a lot of our industry is really facing some inflationary costs right now. Second, another big one that you've seen on the news, vehicle shortage. With microchip shortages, that's delaying a lot of vehicles. Brendan, we still haven't yet got our trash truck that we ordered 12 plus months ago. Is that right?
That's correct.
So we ordered a trash truck over a year ago and still haven't received it. So those are the kinds of things we're facing with vehicles. And then I think the last one, not least, is the labor force. And Dan and I were talking about this the other day with one of our contractors with Monty Taylor. And Monty told Dan, he hired 10 people, Dan, about a month or 2 ago, and every one of them are gone. Is that right?
That's correct.
So we're facing that across the board with our subs as well, trying to do these capital projects. But it's not just us that are facing these. It is our neighbors and our peers and other professionals. So we still have to take that into consideration. Additionally, obviously, I don't know if a recession's coming, so that's one challenge we can address. Those are things we can know coming into it in this budget. And then the last one's the sales tax volatility. Sales tax is a very volatile revenue stream. It has been going good for us lately. Joel will go over that hill a little bit, but it could drop at the blink of a hat. There's nothing we can do about it. There's no structure that we can do to increase the sales tax or bring it down or whatever. It's just kind of its thing. So those are some big challenges that we see going into this budget in the near future. Obviously, sales tax, we still feel pretty good about that, but the rising cost of supplies and the lack of contractors is something that we really have to look at in the capital projects. Just think about it. We've got an influx of federal funding coming into play. Canyon's going to get about $4 million. Randall County's getting $22 million. City of Emerald is getting $60. That's about to be a flood of funds into these contractors to do water, sewer, and drainage projects. There's not enough contractors in the Panhandle to do that. So there's about 56 subdivisions in the whole Panhandle as itself. There's not enough contractors. So that's something we got to take into consideration. What does that do? That's going to drive our cost up. That's going to delay projects. So we may have paid for a project half the price. We're going to be paying 2 to 3 times more now than we did in the past. So, other than that, I'd offer anybody has any thoughts on that. I'm talking for a minute. But we got some big challenges moving forward, especially in this budget. You know, there's some things that we need to talk about. Do we delay projects? Do we move forward on projects? Do we hold and wait for pricing to come down? I know it's a hard predictor, but it's something we have, as leaders, have to acknowledge that is a fact. And behind the rescue plan dollars, there is a federal infrastructure bill coming right behind it for roads, bridges, and public transit. So there's more money going to be dumped in as well. Anybody have any thoughts so far on any of that piece of information, or was unaware of it? You know, that's kind of some of that stuff. I don't think y'all should be too shocked about. I know Gary and I talked about inflation a lot. I don't think we've had rates raised up yet. Gary, interest rates, are they still holding strong? So that's one good thing. Sure enough. Right. Mr. Wright, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm just going to kind of give you an overview of the process we went through and how we got to the numbers that we've got thus far. We have very powerful software. The budget part of this software hasn't really been used in the past, so we begin using that this year. And you receive those reports that are line item. They've got every line item of our general ledger. And they've got last year's budget and then our projected budget for this year. We had each department go into their set of accounts and analyze, project, and assess their needs and input dollars for what they thought they would need to accomplish those tasks and meet those needs. And so throughout those reports, you'll see details and also descriptions where there's significant increases, or if the line item lends itself to detailing out what's in there. They've detailed out what's actually in that line item. So it gives us a lot of good detail. And what we'll do with this is we'll save this copy, and then we'll create a new copy that we'll actually start making changes to here this next week. But this will give us good notes on what they were thinking as they were preparing the budget. And we've already met with them and gone over all of these. But this will also help them. It'll be a tool that they can use going into next year. And as they're coding their invoices, they can remember where they budgeted and kind of look back at this as their budget plan for the year. So it's a very workable document, a usable document, and it's right there at their fingertips. And I appreciate them taking that on. That was a new challenge, something new in the process, that every one of them did it, and I really appreciate their taking time to do it and do it well. They gave us good detail and good information that will help throughout the process.
Lots of detail in there. I know a lot of them have justifications for why they changed the amount, so feel free to read those. We're not going to go into significant details on those right now at this budget work session, but we wanted to introduce you how this is going to be. So we're just switching from the old spreadsheet basically to this now. So, anybody have any questions on that? Or we sent that about a week ago, so y'all should have seen it, and we'll look at it more. So one of the commitments I made to staff, as y'all know, last year, I haven't made any red marks yet. So no red marks have been made, but after this meeting, those red marks will be coming in to decrease and get a balanced budget. So you have in your possession every ask from staff. Let's talk about revenues. Always the one right out of the gate. Let's talk property taxes. Like I said to Gary earlier, we need to re-get this new property tax rate worksheet. There were some issues we needed to fix on that. We don't have that today, and unfortunately we can't get into that. But I do have a new sheet created that's called Property Tax Breakdown and Details. So This one's really a really good piece. Basically, this is what we have received over these last many fiscal years. As everybody knows, the M&O, that's the general fund. That's how we run and operate. The debt service, that is for the cap only. So it averages between 440 to 450. We don't really have much control over that debt service. It just has to be able to pay enough for the principal and interest payments on there. So you can see actual taxes collected over in the far right column last year. And Joel and I projected we met 100%, we'd be at 3.41 million, and we're at 3.418, so it's pretty dang close. We're about 5,000 to the less. The other one's the tax rate breakdown worksheet that y'all have seen. I don't have a new one for this year yet, but I just put it in there as is. Our value is up from 827 million to 902 million, so that's our value. It is up. The mayor asked me to have Mr. Dagley come and speak to us. He'll come to our next meeting in August 16th is what we're hoping to come talk about values and all that. He's our chief appraiser. Most of y'all should know that. Brad. So Jeffrey's a good guy. He lives here in town too. So he'll come and talk about that. So anybody have any questions on this? Tax freeze. We looked at the senior tax freeze. We're losing on annual about $200,000 a year on the senior tax freeze. That's what we're missing out on revenue. Nothing we can really do about that, but that's what we're losing. Joel, do you have anything to add on property taxes?
Not this time.
I see you're looking over there, Mr. Paul. I see that there. So
We will possibly have a little bit of a margin. The debt service, amount required for the debt service will be slightly less, not a lot less, but it'll be slightly less. That declines a little bit each year through the payment schedule, and that's just on the 2016 bonds for the county.
more than likely, we will definitely propose the same numerical tax rate at minimum, just like we did last year. Obviously, we may want to go over that. Some of that discussion will come out with 3% merit, which I'll talk about here in a minute, for all staff, as well as new positions in the general fund. And so there's some positions in the general fund, and so that may be where tax discussions go. I wish I had the tax rate worksheet here today. Unfortunately, they've got a lot of new tax rate worksheets, and it was delayed this year coming out, so it's just taking a little bit longer. There's a lot of things we're having to adapt and do from the legislature, but that'll be coming soon. So we will talk property taxes when we talk staff somewhere here in a little bit. Mr. Burns, would you go ahead and mention master fee schedule, so you'll have those in front of y'all. We are taking action on this tonight at our meeting, and so Mr. Burns and Mr. Cornelius, we're going to speak on master fees.
Another source of income, as you know, are fees that the city charges. Something we started last year was trying to compile all our fees into one location, schedule of fees, knowing that previously you would have had to dig around to find those things throughout our ordinances in different locations. This helps us put this all together. We'll pass one resolution, adopts this schedule that changes all our fees. We have gone through, and those things that are highlighted in yellow are fees that we are proposing to change this year. The red is the new rate. The black rate with the line through it is the rate that it formerly was. As you flip through here, you'll see very limited changes, some changes in the community center as far as room rentals. Fire department has one change on the rental of a apparatus when they're out on call. Flipping through, once you move back into planning and development, which is on the 4th page, you'll start to see some changes. Those changes are being brought about because there's been changes with the legislator in Austin. As you well know, well, I guess our session isn't over. We're still in a session at this point in time. But one of the things they did was they took away some fees that we previously charged. And those are all associated with Danny. And so I'm going to let Danny hop up and kind of explain to you what these changes are and why we changed them.
Next is room to the top.
No, sir, it is not.
We got bacon in there right now.
That's all.
Yeah, that's it.
That was a source of revenue we lost.
Do you have somewhere for me to go?
Yeah, no place where we're gonna go.
Unless you found a way to offset that yet.
Like John mentioned, our legislature's preempted our ability to collect registration fees on state licensed contractors. Now, let me give you guys this sheet. You have something to look at, as I thought. Within your view. That top table I've placed up there is some estimations I did based off the 2019-2020 fiscal year. Our annual fee for contractor registration pretty much across the board is $90 per year. Now, as of this last legislative session, they preempted our ability to collect those fees on all state licensed contractors, which includes mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractors. So I did the calculations based off of that. In 2019-2020, we had 182 contractors that we registered. That calculated out to that $90 each. That calculated at just over $16,000 in revenue that we're losing based off of that preemption. On down to the next table, just a quick look at what our current permit fees are. The $50 minimum permit fee is a minimum, typically comes to those subs. So they change out a water heater, they change out a meter, they change out an HVAC system, sewer line, etc. That's a $50 minimum permit fee. Our current, and those fees have been in place since November 2016. So it's been some time since we've raised our building permit fees. As you guys are aware, with this fee schedule, we did increase some of our zoning fees, specific use permits, zoning applications, variance requests, etc. Right now we're $1 for the minimum, 26 per square foot for the residential permits, because remember we couldn't calculate based off value more, so we went to 26 per square foot, which came out. I think we showed you guys that pretty much broke us even. It didn't really increase fees or decrease fees. And then our calculation for permit fees for commercial building projects is 3 thousandths times valuation. That's where we stand now. What we're looking at, and Craig Brown has helped me extensive with this, we're proposing a $60 minimum for those single permits for the ones I mentioned. Increase to 30 cents per square foot for residential building permits, and increase to 4 thousandths times valuation for the commercial building permits. I did just a quick calculation of what those fees, what we would have collected for those fees in 2019-2020, which was almost $171,000. Now, based off of what we're proposing here, those fees we would have collected in the range of almost $204,000, for a difference of $33,000. If you see below, I put a net increase after you remove the loss of the registration fees. That net gain would be about $16,737, and that's based off of 2019-2020 transactions we had. And then take it a step further just to see how that would affect some projects in the past. I have the top 4 numbers you see in that bottom table are 4 typical new home building permits. Okay, Fort Crestway was a fairly large home, 5,480 square feet. Permit fee was $1,425. Based off of what we're proposing for these increasing building permit fees, that would be $1,644, and we're at $219 interest for that building permit. I just took some generic numbers. A large home, what I would call a large home, the permit 3,000 square feet, the permit current fee would be $780, the new fee would be $900, for a difference of $120. A medium home, which is what we're looking at for the most part today, when we're talking about Madison Park, we're talking about Canyon East, etc. About a 2,500 square foot home. Current fee is $650. The proposed fee would be $750 for an increase of $100. And then a small home, maybe a garden home, 1,500 square foot, would be an increase of $60. Looking at commercial projects, I took Toad, for example, which is a fairly large project, the Canyon commercial project. Most of our larger projects, evaluation, are CISD projects. And those aren't charged permit fees. They're charged, nowadays, you're going to be charged planner review fees, but they're not charged a permit fee. So the substantial amount for a commercial project, one of the larger commercial projects I can find in recent years, was a $5 million tube total project. Their permit fee was $15,000 for that project. The proposed fee would be $2,000 for an increase of $5,000 on that $5 million project. The XL substation out on VFW at $1.7 million. Current fee was $5,100 for the permit. Proposed fee $6,800 for a difference of $1,700. AutoZone was a remodel. That was a $375,000 project. It would be an increase of $375. These are all 1/1000% of it. 1/10%. And then a typical warehouse, a small warehouse like we're seeing on North 2nd Avenue in the area, $110,000 project, would have seen an increase of $110 in permit fee. The AT&T remodel over by United, that was an $80,000 project, would have seen an $80 permit increase. As I said again, based off these calculations, if we applied those to projects in the 2019-2020 year, that would have generated an increase a total increase of $33,000 in revenue. Just a little more information. I had Joel provide some information on revenues, total revenues, and that includes mowing expenses, which are typically offset by, or mowing revenues rather, which are typically offset by the mowing expense themselves. Zoning, other income, various things that we pull in. Our total revenues in 2019-2020 for the department was $197,374 total revenues. Our expenses, our budget expenses at the end of that year, what we actually expended, not our budget amount, but what we actually expended was $507,411 for a difference of $310. So we're funding our department's activities through our revenues at a rate of about 39%. Joe will tell you that ICC, or International Code Council, we look at their valuation tables when we start looking how do we evaluate homes or how do we evaluate commercial buildings based on type of construction and use to figure out what that true valuation would be if it ever comes to question. And Paul's familiar with this based off home valuation. It's not necessarily recommended, but an example they use of a department's revenue generation versus expenditures is about 75%. So we're well short of that. And I don't think anybody's room at Texas to get to that point. Just to kind of give you an idea of where we stand in our department for our expenses versus our revenues. We're nowhere near an enterprise fund. I don't think anyone expects that to happen. But, we have increased our staff recently. We've added Michael Zicker as a building inspector. We greatly appreciate that. Michael's been fantastic, and it's really helped. I think Craig, I told Craig to muss his hair, put his glasses on, will actually look like how hard it is in the trenches for him these days. That's been a great help for us. And Joe's allowed us to hire a part-timer working 4 hours a week to help the girls up front, because they're really just inundated every day. It's really been busy. It's been it's been a good thing. I think last year was our home permits alone were nature 142, maybe 147. Last look, we were at 122 thus far this year, so we're going to break that. Hope it continues to grow. But as those permits grow, doesn't really mean you start to offset those expenses. I think it's quite the opposite. I think you spend more time with more people, and those permits staying the same for the last 5 years, you're really not kept up with the demand.
I can say Danny's definitely, his staff is thankful for the new position. As you know, it was very necessary. You know, in mid-year, we hired a part-time person to help in addition to what the new position was going forward. So the workload in planning and development is as heavy as it's ever been. That could change at any moment, but we went from 80 the previous year to 140 something, and we're on track to beat last year. So that's pretty huge for new homes. About right, Danny? So.
Been very, very busy. I'm really proud of our staff and how hard they work. And there's a lot more to it than just building. As you get bigger, we had more violations to deal with. You guys can see we're really struggling to keep our head above water with weed violations this year. And just comes with a lot of extra work. Craig Farr spends 25% of his day just trying to put out some fires with all the new development. And we're hoping to learn from some of the mistakes we've made in the past. Yeah, it's been very, very busy on the part. So I don't think any of these fee increases are I think they're fairly minimal. I know I can say certainly we're still lower than Amarillo is in their residential building permit fees.
Significantly, right?
I think they're looking at going to they're looking at going to
per square foot. 38 per square foot.
For the residential, yes. No, I'm sorry, they're at 38 now. They're going to 42 cents per square foot on the residential part. This is proposed. This is what their building official has submitted. The rest of the things are pretty well in line with what they have. I see roofing permits going from 50 to 150. So, good luck with that.
And we're going to 60 is what we're requesting.
Correct. We're doing 60 across the board for the minimum. So
Lots of $10. Is there any technology fee across the board you're raising in all areas? Talk about a little bit of technology.
our technology fee goes to something that Joe brought along, that idea, and that technology fee is dedicated to pay for our software, our building permit software, and code enforcement software, et cetera. We're looking at maybe generating about $4,000 this year based off those technology fees. The software itself runs about $17,000 a year, so we're well short of that. And I don't expect to take a bite of that apple all at once, but I think it's prudent to move forward at this point in time to increase those fees slightly. Last I looked, beginning of June, I think we were about $2,500 in those fees. I think it's time to probably, that's a new fee. That's something we put in effect a year ago. That hasn't been since 2016 we did that. That's a new fee. I think that's a fairly minimal ask fee. Help pay for some of that software.
And even like on your residential roofing, one of the things I'm aware of, Dan, is that increasingly that's a longer inspection than it ever is.
It is. Back when I was inspecting, it was an outside inspection. We had a big hailstorm. I tried to get into as many houses as I could because you had a lot of out-of-town roofers came through. And the biggest concern there is the gas appliance vents. Whether they may cover those vents up, they've knocked them loose, they've moved them over too close to some combustibles. They should have 1 inch of space between that vent and combustibles like the roof deck to make sure those fire hazards are there. And also the carbon monoxide hazard, because I saw several that letting you know, a lot of times these things will come up in the attic off the water here, 90 over, 90 up, and that breaks loose, it's just hanging there, venting into the attic. Worst case scenario, I've seen those where the roof company just simply roofed over the vent and left it venting straight into the attic, so.
You're supposed to
fire
have
hazard.
so many vents per square foot on top of it,
And then we.
motorized and non-motorized.
We have to calculate how much attic ventilation we have in place, we have carbon monoxide detector requirements nowadays, we didn't want to have, so it takes getting into homes. Now during this big rush we've had in the past, they're not able to get as many homes as they might have liked, but they're getting photograph evidence, things like that, but on a typical roof inspection, rather than just look at the outside your schedule time with the homeowner getting in, climbing around the attic, and sometimes that's easy and sometimes it's not. Roof permits aren't, and inspections aren't what they used to be. But I think $60 is very adequate. I think that's, like I said, everybody else jumped up to 150. That's a pretty good jump, pretty good buy.
Anybody else on fees?
I think we talked about this before, but I'd love for us to look at residential water service rates. Retiering those.
Well, I'll talk about that later here in a second. We can talk about that when we get to utility fees. We can talk about that, Cody. I know the mayor wants to talk about it too, so I've got a plan.
Just on the sheet, I know, the only one you have after the English section, police department, off-duty police, changing that to $40 an hour, from 35 to 40. And then on the last page of that, the
Development fee that we did.
development design fee that you all have already voted on, and we discussed that, so it just rolls into the schedule for the first time.
You know, one thing I think would be really interesting to see on this spreadsheet is the date it was last changed, and maybe even the amount that it was, and you know, ones I wonder about a little bit, you know, is use of some of our fields and all. You know, I don't know how long it's been since we changed some of that, but you know, compared to what our fields were 5 years ago,
Right.
10 years ago, or you know, remember back when there were cactus on some of the fields, and you know, literally.
Yeah.
But I think we also provide some personnel out for baseball. Well, that didn't used to be, so you know, I think we're probably providing more service and higher product than what we used to.
Did we discuss that?
But I don't know how that compares to.
Which,
we did.
Ron, you're over there too. I know you and John discussed that length, right?
We did. We did change all of our fees about 2-3 years ago for soccer and baseball both.
I'll see if we can get some of these with dates on it, Mayor, just try to make it as concise as we can on this spreadsheet. It gets a little more cluttered.
Yes.
And I guess football pays what soccer does. So.
Internally, you know, John's the leader on this, and he is charged to be with every department on here to make sure that they have in-person and, you know, discussions about these. And I'm pretty sure you did that from library to the cap. So we talked about it with every department on hand. So there's nothing we just, we're just going to skim over. We talk about it every year to see if we need to make changes. Any further discussion on master fees? We're hoping tonight we were able to approve the fee schedule so we can get that out of the way. We've tried to minimize that. Utility fees is up a little bit, but there are no proposed increase to water and sewer rates or solid waste rates at this time. So Joel and I will talk about that in a minute.
No, I just
Oh, sorry.
so on water rates, we'll talk about that too.
We'll talk about that here in a second, but there is not a proposed increase from the staff at this time on water rates. But we'll get to that. Next, we're going to have a big decline in Lone Star Dairy revenues. Y'all probably saw my comprehensive update. They are coming into compliance, and we will be refunding them the penalty payments for our water system improvement agreement. What's that going to do? Well, we're running a third month without a surcharge, which is the first time we've really done that ever since they came on in 2017. So we're not doing any penalties at this point, it's a surcharge going away. However, we are doing our first payment in lieu of taxes penalty. You think what that is? Is it 16 or 60? 61. So we're getting our first payment from them, $61,000, that payment in lieu of taxes, their economic development deal. So it's their first year, that's year 3, right?
Three.
Year 3, year 1 and 2 were $0, and this year will be our first year for that. It's 61-something thousand.
That was January, I think.
Yeah, they wanted us to wait till January. Till that.
Roll forward for 10 years, Joel, I believe it is.
We got 7 more years.
And then at that, then they'll pay the rate, their abatement.
They'll, looking at the property valuation, they'll be our highest value property in Canyon property. I think they're like massive, they're on the top 10 list, I think we're like 600. So, any questions on Lone Star? Lots have happened since then. Dan and I are gonna go to their board meeting coming up to talk to their board, but we've been very happy with the way they've moved. We are moving forward to remit them about $1 million in penalties they've paid. That's what we're looking at right now. And we're gonna do that once Dan and I finish their new discharge term. There'll be some new provisions to that, but we're hoping that'll get done in September. Dan and I are working on it. Next up, American Rescue Plan, Mr. Wright.
I gave you a handout for this, that's headed with the TDEM, Texas Department of Emergency Management. This is just kind of a summary of what this act means for us as a non-entitlement unit, which is a local government serving a population of under 50,000. We've been allotted, right behind that, there's a spreadsheet. On the second page of that, you'll see our allotment, which is based on a population of 15,045. We've been allotted $3.95 million. We'll receive that in 2 amounts over 2 years. We'll receive 1.975 soon. Can't say exactly when, but soon. And then the other 1.975 would be the following year. Also in that handout there, if you look to like the 3rd page, there's a highlighted section there. It says cost period eligibility. We're required to spend these funds over about 5 years. Actually, we have to contract to spend these funds by the end of December of 2024. And we actually have to have incurred the cost of spending these funds by the end of 2026. And like Joe mentioned in his preface, the challenges of getting that done with the limited number of contractors, that's going to be the challenge. It's not going to be that we can't come up with projects, because we've got those listed already, but getting those contracts awarded, getting those contractors in line to do the work could be a challenge. We have gone ahead and submitted everything. We're in line to receive that funding. As I understand it, the governor is submitting a request today on behalf of the state to the feds to get that distribution based on everyone that responded to whether or not they would be requesting their allotment. And so it's just a matter of time now before we receive that. But probably our biggest urgency in it will be getting that money expended and getting the contracts in place to do that.
We'll have to face a single audit, probably 2 single audits. Single audits required when you receive over $750,000 federal dollars. So we'll have to do a couple single audits over there.
And that's just going to result in a little bit closer look at our internal controls, so we need to really watch and be sure that we're following procurement rules very well as we're putting out for those bids and awarding those contracts. Maintaining good documentation as we're going through these contracts, and just being sure that we can support everything that we spent this money on, and that we did it in accordance with the compliance rules that the federal government, the U.S. Treasury puts out.
What restrictions are using this word?
Pretty much.
That's also on the 2nd page of the handout. There's 4 things that are listed. First of all is response to COVID-19. Second is responding to workers performing essential work for COVID-19. The provision of government services to the extent of the reduction of revenue of state funding. And then the one that we really will qualify for is the last one, to make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So that's what we're anticipating using these funds for, is water and sewer infrastructure.
Y'all's opinion as far as timing, with that inflation piece in there, what, you know,
Joel-
what's the right timing?
Joel reached out to see them and didn't really get any clarification from Gary on that question. So, on the timing, are you talking about timing for the money, or are you talking about timing for the inflation?
You know, when we spend the money,
How long
timing
can
for
we
us
wait?
to try to, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're not sure when we're gonna get those funds released at this point. That was our first big question, so you didn't get any response from
No,
that.
not really. Like I say, we have to have those contracts awarded, or the bids awarded by December 31 of 2024. So that's 2.5 years, and then we have to actually have it spent by the end of 26.
If we thought, expenses were going to continue to rise, we could go ahead and let some contracts pretty quick too. I guess it's a possibility.
As long as we
know when it's coming.
The one thing dealing with federal government and the way the state's involvement is there's a lot more red tape as we typically do. And so there may be some programmatic requirements that prohibit you from doing those expenses early rather than waiting until a certain point in time to incur that, or obligate, more or less obligate. That's the one question we're not exactly sure until we dive into it. Joel's watching a webinar this week or next week to look at those program guidance. We just don't want to put ourselves in a bind if, you know, if we do something too quick that it's not reimbursable in this fund. That's what Joel's going to try to find out here. Hopefully we'll have some more clarification.
We definitely don't want to commit to anything until we're sure we're getting the first round. So I'm saying the government just today.
Yeah, he's just now applying to the federal government today from the state level.
It looks like a sure thing, but we'll make big decisions on that.
And then the state's held on to some of those funds for a while, the school district funds, all those funds, you know, the state just kind of let it sit and lost them for quite some time.
That's what they did in the last one.
We're not sure what they'll do with this, how long are they gonna just have a control issue with that?
But it might be a possibility, it might be advantageous for us to be early on the curve or something too.
Correct. And we're
ready to pull the trigger.
We're taking steps towards that to get that answer, Gary, on when we can do that. Joel will continue to move down that path, because that's, you know, right now, we think, the way I would word it is, costs are high, costs will get higher. I can deal with costs being high right now. I don't want to go to that higher tier, because then I get a lot more apprehensive at that point, rather than maybe we should wait. So, either way, it's gonna be anarchy, chaotic. Even if we do get it, it's gonna be, you know, lots of contractors, or a few contractors for lots of projects. And then we throw in the materials being so limited, it just makes it issue first. So, but we will continue to try to do that. So we're gonna talk about capital projects here in a minute on that point. So let's continue to move. So can you briefly go over sales tax? We need to expedite the pace a little more. I just wanna make sure we get everything in, y'all.
So you can see the sales tax trend over the past 4 years, and this is just the same schedule that I always give you. But I've also given you how I've projected it for this year. So I'm projecting this year to finish the year at about 2.9 million on sales tax. This includes actual through July, so we got August and September left to go. And that's less the CEDC's portion. For the next budget year, I'm projecting just a modest 2% increase over what we received this year. And that's basically because we don't really know what is gonna happen in this next fiscal year. We know that this current fiscal year, we've gotten consumers have gotten stimulus payments, they've gotten anywhere from $2,000 to $6,000 extra to spend, and of course that generates sales tax. There's inflation in that mix. So those higher prices are gonna result in higher sales tax. But it's an unknown whether that's gonna slow down spending. People start to feel that high price on everything, and start to limit spending in the community. We just don't know. So, I've gone ahead and left it fairly high, and there's just a slight increase for this year.
We've nearly gone up $1 million in about 7 years, so that's amazing. Thankfully, we have the new Supreme Court ruling about delivery of service for goods. You know, Amazon has really been a big one for us here in Canyon, so it's generated $30,000 a month at least. So I think in that right, Evelyn, 30 to that has been a huge game changer for us. And you can see 2017 to 2018, we brought in a little over $3 million, and this year we're predicting about $3.8 million. That's incredible. We should be very thankful for that. There's not a lot of ways. You know, at this point, you know, we're almost to $1 million just in the EDC alone. But very good things. Like Joel said, though, very volatile. We don't know when it can go up or down. Thankfully, we've been blessed. Utility fees, water revenue is down. It's been a very wet year and cool year. We've had very little high temperature days. That's a blessing, but also hard for water revenue. Joel, you want to dive into some of that?
You know, like Joe said, the usage has gone down. That's something we don't have control over. So if it rains, we just bill what people use, so we don't have any control over that. We're not proposing a rate increase. I'm just not comfortable increasing that base rate anymore. We talked about doing that for 2 years, $1 increase in the base rate each year to cover the AMI debt financing. We did do that increase for this last fiscal year, but we're going to try not to do that this year, and we'd really like to keep that base rate unchanged at this time.
Yeah. One of the things Gary and I talked about, and some others, we're looking at the higher tier levels, tier 5, 3 through 5, and our utility billing manager has pulled some numbers, and we're still looking through that. And so, one of the things is, you know, a higher tier will, you know, could help deter some of the residents with the increased amount if we decided to change the higher tier. I know the mayor has talked to staff about that. At this time, I'd like to move forward with a cost of service and rate design study with New Gen Strategies, and I've got that proposal somewhere. They have it. Do they have it? It should be the one that says New Gen Strategies.
New Gen in the corner.
Staples. We'd like to do a rate structure study over water, wastewater, and solid waste, and this goes into the New Gen Strategies and Solutions. I've used them several times for previous employment, but they do a really good job of looking at stuff, see where we compare to others across the United States, not a panhandle, but, you know, across normal rate makers like we are. So it's unusual in the Texas Panhandle that we have the same base rate for every account. That's not a very normal thing. Typically, base rates are associated with the size of meter, and we don't do that. It's a very Texas Panhandle thing. Same thing like alleys. Alleys are not a very common thing. It's very West Texas. Most cities don't have alleys. But Dave Yonke is the president of New Gen, and he put this together for me. So that's what we're hoping to do this year, and I've got it in the budget currently right now. He'll come several times to speak to y'all. And Joel and I will do a lot of work with our staff on gathering these details. Some of the things that solid waste is running into issues for operations, We do have a lot of town that do have dumpsters. Dumpsters are 3 yards, covers multiple houses. Well, most of our new houses are on poly carts. Well, fortunately, they don't have the kind of shared uses like we have as a dumpster. I can put a lot more in the dumpster behind my house than Cody can at his house with poly. We have been doing 2 polys to help make up for that. However, running trash service for poly carts does take longer than the traditional dumpster route. Is that correct, Brendan? Does that be pretty accurate?
It does with the extent of the carts we have out there now.
And we're not charging for the second poly cart. So it's kind of been a luxury item for our new residents, just so you know. But that's an increased level of service that we feel that our citizens deserve. If they're not being charged, it takes us longer, and that time does affect trash pickup all the time. So they'll look at that too. They'll look at the operational aspect of that. So just some of the things we've been looking at in public works.
On that study that Joe's talking about, the task 7, if you be open to that, the cost of service, that seems to be one of the most intriguing aspects of that, Joe, is the fact that they're able to look at that actual cost of your service and look at the level of service you're providing different people and make sure that you're charging the right rates for those various levels of service. And it goes into solid waste, water, and wastewater. That seems to be really a thing that we don't have. It's difficult for us to determine.
So would this project team be a team that might be tasked with looking at somebody different types of grasses?
No, just looking at the operational side of it. Just, what our cost as a city, what we're charging our ratepayers.
Commercial versus residential.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been used to in the past is we would overcharge residential and not charge enough for commercial. Well, we're trying to make it equitable. Commercial should be charged a little more. And so we try to make sure that those costs are equitable, like I said. Okay. He had something, looked like he wanted to say something.
Oh, Cody, I think part of what you're driving at too, how do we drive the conservation piece? And, so I think you can say, okay, if this just straight, dollars and cents cover the cost of services, that's one thing. But if we're really trying to go, different ways of driving water conservation, and maybe one is ordinances or different types of grass or amount of irrigation you can have on your property. But I think another one is, Dan, I know when we had our TECQ audit, that's one of the things they were pushing was to have a tiered, increase. And I think I could really vote for increase even before this of, the top 3 tiers. I mean, taking care of the folks that are, using 20,000 gallons or less a month.
I think on average, John, we were looking at earlier, most are what, 20?
We come in about 28 is actually the average.
It's the average.
Yeah,
Yes,
average.
but that's 1/3 above that and 2/3 below that. That's how it breaks because of that water.
I want to give a shout out to Lee for doing this. She did an incredible job on some of these statistics, and we will share those with y'all. We just got them in this morning. And so we're still looking those over, Gary. So that's one of the things when Gary and I talked about the higher tiers, I want some details and data.
So do you have that in front of you? Do we have a lot that are over plus 50,000?
Not a ton, but there are some.
Residential, you're going to talk residential. These are broken down a lot of categories. They're broken down churches, residential.
If it's not easy to get to, yeah. it's
WT,
residential.
school.
If it's not easy to get to, it's not big deal.
Nope, let's pull it up.
We did it over 3 years, Cody.
So let's look at 2020. That should be. Well, those are wrong. And we're not sure why. She's going to get those.
Okay.
But there's your numbers. So residential, as far as a person, we can say right there would come down. I'm looking at this year, you've got some people that are coming in at 287 today.
Okay.
So maybe
That's not your house here.
So, that's a lot of water.
We've got a list, we've got quite a extensive list here, I'm not sure how many are on this list, but go all the way from that down to.
I've got all the way down to zero.
All the way down to zero, so. We can get you some more details on that.
You know, I think just as this decision is made, you know, it should be more than just covering the cost of operations. It should also be, that water conservation piece should be in there.
I would think these folks would be able to
Yeah,
deal with that. If we
I
brought
think
that to
so.
them as part of that conversation, I would think they would be able to
If that's
do
important to
that.
y'all. Does everybody feel well about that? Bring that conservation piece in this cost of service?
You know, I'm speaking to somebody that needs to conserve more water, and I've taken out sprinkler heads in the past
See your
several
bill.
years.
It hasn't?
And, you know.
Obviously,
my
it hasn't
water
been
bill-
painful enough.
Yeah.
Actually,
Gary was in tier 5.
You have moved. I mean, I've seen your name through the years on these totals, and you do.
And I can show you 50 sprinkler heads we've taken out in our yard too, but, you know, part of that's doing
Let
the
me-
right thing, but part of it's on the cost side too.
Let me talk with Dave on that. I think we can add that to that. We can visit with him, but really think the study's the way to go, to do it diligently. These guys will bring recommendations to what you should do, how you should move your rates. You know, some of the ones we had actually were reduced in certain ways. And they'll help you structure how to bring them to where they need to be over several years.
The cost of this study is
75. They charged me in 2017, $72,000, $72,500, so it's almost the same. These guys are out of the Metroplex. I've done quite a bit of work with them in Warburg. They're doing work in Irving right now on the same stuff, so they do a lot of this. Any questions on that? Keep chugging along. Joel, you want to talk that proceed real quick?
Yeah, we did go ahead and budget. In this budget, we've got costs for putting in wells and transmission line for Spring Canyon, well field. Part of that could be covered with this American Rescue Act fund money, but we would also have to finance part of that as well. I'm getting a little uncomfortable with how much debt service we have. This is from the budget. This is in the utility fund alone. Of course, we're financing the purchase of the property for the water rights that we just did. But our debt service is up to $1.5 million just on those. So being able to take on any more debt, I think we're about where we need to stop. As far as financing major projects, we might could endure one more toward this wellfield project, supplemented with the American Rescue Act funds. I just want you to be aware of that. We do have, of course, we'll collect taxes for servicing the 2016 general obligation bonds as part of the tax rate. We do have a little bit of accumulation of taxes in excess of our annual debt service, which we will be able to apply that at the end of that term payment term. At this point, it's $257,000 accumulated. So that started in 2017. So that's over the period of about 5 years.
On the debt service here, you know, we collect $450 or so. We would have an excess of $257 of overclaim. We were kind of out of our hands on that, but it has to be used for that debt. We cannot take it out of there and use it for something else. It's statutory.
So we could pay it down at any point in time, but it has to go toward that 2016.
Save its interest, will it pay annually?
Yeah.
So our,
We could start paying that down in 2 years after it accumulates. And we can go ahead and apply that to the principal.
any thoughts on that? You all want us to go ahead and start paying that down? So
Well, that's where it's gotta go.
it's just sitting there right now, so.
Joel, why do you think we're borrowing more money with security?
Well, we don't need to spend any, we don't have any more disposable income to be servicing debt with, to keep up with the maintenance and operations. So we just don't want to get more debt there than we can afford to service. with the existing revenues that we have. And traditionally, Canyon has not serviced its debt with tax bonds. The CAP financing was the first one to do that.
I think, talking to John and Sylvia, I think that's the only tax equity debt we've done in 25, 30 years.
We've only used revenues to service the debt, and primarily water revenues. And as we've been discussing, we've maxed that up.
We want to do more debt, that bonds would be the way to go.
That's what we're still looking at, Paul. We're predicting right now, looking at the CIP, of doing some tax supported bonds for a new police station, a new facility. We're looking tentatively for 2023 at that right now, but we want to do a good job at that. So that's probably the next.
But it has to go to the voters.
Does go to, yes, sir. It goes
Increase
to voters.
the tax rate to that.
Just like the county. Yeah,
Like
just like
that.
that. We're going to continue to look at that. We had a good conversation with our bond counsel, with our bond representative, Jason Hughes. So we're going to talk to him on debt management and all that to see what we're going to do with that. So I think Joel's right on that.
First, it sounds like the bond way to go, but I think the taxpayers and the voices.
Yeah.
Be doing here.
I think so, and that second part you just named, Paul, I want to do that part well. I think nothing against our town or city. I want to put a really good detail. I thought, one of the ones I want to give props to was Kenyon ISD. I thought did an outstanding job on the way they communicated the details of their bond election. And so I'd like to get with them and see what we can do and do that well. And I think that's important to y'all. If it's not, please tell me. But I think y'all want to be able to do everything you can, go above and beyond, communicate the information out to the voters and our citizens when we get there. And that does take time. But we need to prepare for that. So it is several years out. But
You got some good help back here.
we do. And she and I have already, briefly mentioned that when we're ready to start moving that direction, once the CIP is adopted, we'll be ready to move that direction, Paul and Randy. And that will be a component to that bond, is a communication plan and how we're going to communicate it to our citizens.
Yeah, I think if it's not done well, we are going to get certainty barrier
Yeah.
and it's likely to fail if we don't.
Agreed.
Why we're asking for the tax increase.
That's what we're thinking moving forward. I want to go through personnel real quick, and I think we're going to have to call it quits, y'all, unfortunately. I'll give y'all a break for a little bit. Right now, I've prepared, Joel has prepared a 3% merit for city staff across the board. We've got the totals in the You'll pull those totals. I propose doing a holiday stipend for $100 for full-time employees and $50 for part-time. That would be at Christmas time. I think that calculated out to it's in the spreadsheet. Yeah, so here's the 3% across the board, and Joel's got a 2 and 2.5% breakdown for staff across the board. We're looking at a total of $187,000 for all funds for 3%. That will be city administration's recommendation. When we look at taxes, property taxes, I would like to be able to make sure we cover the $119 at the minimum and property tax revenue increase. Good thing is the TMRS, retirement and health rates, TMR health rates, and risk pool, workers' comp rates, they did not really change at all. We got a credit from TML Health. TML Health, which y'all know I serve on the board of trustees, they actually took, for all their COVID claims, millions of dollars of COVID claims. Hector, do you remember how much they quoted the other day? Where are you? Do you remember, Gretchen, how much they quoted for COVID claims? Millions of dollars they took out of reserves. The health pool did. So, and I'm on that board. So we did not pay that out of anybody's rates. It came out of cash reserves for all the COVID claims. So that's very good. And then obviously the last big one, and And I'll leave it at this for y'all to ponder on. We've got 20 new position requests out here. I have not touched any of these, so you can see it. Let's scoot back up, Bill. Too far down. Right there. Where's Dennis? There he is. Dennis is leading the way with 4. So, yep. We're adding overtimes. We're having issues in water, sewer, mostly water, on comp time. With a 10, 11 person division, they don't have time to do comp time a lot of times. And so we're moving to do overtime in water. So we're paying tens of thousands of dollars out on that comp time. So we have to pay that comp time when they leave, or when we get over the statutory requirement. I think the public safety is 420 something, and then 240 or 210 for non-public safety, I think. So if it gets over that amount of comp time, which we have several times, and I had to pay some this last year, and you can tell I don't like paying it, but it is something we have to do to keep in line with federal guidelines. So we're moving to overtime for these divisions.
And we moved to that this year for the first time in the fire department.
We did. 35,000 in the fire department, and Dennis has been working on that, trying to keep that in line. And so summer's always busier, so he has to hold until summertime due to the rising temperatures. Police department's been pretty good over the last many years. They've had overtime for a long time. They incur a lot of that on 4th of July at the parade. And so the other departments incur a lot of those times. It's kind of a hands on deck when 4th of July happens. But unfortunately, Eric is the bad one of them all. They got 3 or 4 guys that incur a lot. But there's a lot of times we have to go out at all hours of the day to turn meters on, emergencies that we have to get out there, and there's nothing we can do. We're not going to just let it happen. So those are some overtimes that we've put into the budget this year on those.
Can you go back and explain the holiday pay again?
Yeah. We did that last year. It's around $15,000. We did it last year since we didn't do a Christmas party, so I just redid it again this year. And it's just a one-time $100 at holiday time for full-time, and then $50 for part-time. And it totals about $15,000 in the budget.
So Joe, the cost of your overtime then for the water department, that's probably about the cost of $50,000 of an employee. I mean,
We're incurring more than that right now, Gary.
Overtime's expensive. We're better off putting an employee on and trying to keep the overtime.
It's never gonna fix itself by putting another employee. Yeah, they've requested another employee, but there's always gonna be hours outside of 8 to 5, and that's where we're incurring most of that, correct, Harry?
Could you say?
Well, it's the same guys going out.
Yeah, it's
Because there's not enough to spread it over.
There's not enough to spread it out. There's only so many that goes out. So, Dan, do you wanna speak to any of that?
People will help, but 1, no, 3 maybe, sure. Then you start to see some of the overtime and comp time stuff come down. We're just that understaffed.
This is worked well for us, fire department.
Dennis, how do you feel that it's worked for you, fire department? Has it helped some?
It's beneficial because, in my experience, as busy as we are, you just keep accruing comp time, you don't have time to take it off. You start allowing people to take it off and you become understaffed. It's, you feel like it's been beneficial.
The years that I've been working at the fire department, this year it's been a great benefit for us. Just speaking from my personal experience in the years, I'd work my comp time down and something would happen and it would triple. And you try to take off and you can't take off because somebody's sick or somebody's training or you just can't, and it just keeps building and it'll never go down.
It's a vicious cycle.
I've tried for 10 years or better to get mine.
You're paying less per hour if you're doing comp time and an additional employee than you would be if you did it overtime.
You're talking a lot more.
Actually, you're not paying any less on comp time. It's time and a half.
Yeah, comp time is time and a half. Is that, I didn't realize.
Actually, you're paying more because
yes.
Vince is probably getting paid for hours he earned as a lieutenant at Captain Ranges.
Yeah, he's one of the biggest ones I got to pay off. Vince has got a high, Dan, Ruth, several of the guys in the water.
Am I wrong?
No, if you don't mind me saying, I've got 400 and something hours.
I didn't know that's what your comp time.
Yeah, it has to be time and a half. It is paid, it's on there. Most of the time, we're paying that off is when it gets above the federal regulation, or when they leave. When they leave and depart, they have to pay it off. Eric just had a guy that left, had a lot of comp time, we had to pay multiple thousands of dollars.
He had 236 hours of comp time. So
And
it's
how long-
not budgeting for that.
How long did he work there?
Right about 2 years.
So he started off at this wage, left at this wage, and had to pay him at this wage for hours he earned at this wage.
Correct, Coach, that is correct.
And time.
I appreciate it, Cody, I didn't know, I haven't been in that comp time system, so I didn't know.
Did you know if we let somebody
comp time.
go to exempt from non-exempt, we'll go ahead and pay them those comp time hours when they go to exempt, because that's usually gonna be a higher rate of pay. So we try to pay them, pay those hours out.
Yeah, Dan and I, and Joel, and a lot of us have spent a lot of time to try to even put these out. You guys were way over time. And so Dan and I Dan especially put a spreadsheet together with comp time and try to average it out. And so this is where we want to start, and we'll probably reevaluate in a year or two to see where we're at. But on
This
average,
amount that we're budgeting for would be paid off all of those accumulated hours.
in addition,
And transfer to an exempt type system.
we're just doing it. To tell you, comp time is not here. It's over. They're not taking it off anyways. So when they leave or when they get too high, I have to pay it. And so that kills me budgetarily. Eventually, I'm gonna have to pay Vince for 440 some odd hours, and that's probably $12,000 to $15,000. That kills me in the budget. And I don't want to expense.
We should take 8.
Yeah, is this negotiable?
We can probably negotiate something.
Save us the labor board.
New positions, I want to run through new positions, we're running over you guys, and then we need to take a 5-10 minute break. But I haven't hit those yet. I can tell you from my first assessment, I feel the streets department is a big one on the list for me. I think we need to really look at that one. Fire department needs to continue to expand. We're gonna probably talk more about the SAFER grant again. We had that big work session with Dennis and Vince a few months ago. And you see the rest, parks, planning development, they hired an administrative system halfway through the year. I mentioned that earlier, moving that to full-time. Other one I'm talking about, I mentioned earlier, solid waste. They want 2 new positions. We're having some Operation Solid Waste. What happens, and Brendan can speak with me on this, a lot of times the street guys overcompensate for the solid waste. So we're not getting any street work done because they're too busy picking up trash. Is that correct, Brendan? So we're not getting street work done. They're picking trash. And we need to have them doing potholes, whatever we need to do.
Brick streets.
You'll never get brick streets done at the staff we got here. Yes, brick streets. Brendan said he'll leave the jigsaw effort on brick streets. We had to hire a utility service clerk in Joel's department halfway through the year, a part-time there. We were having 200 to 300 new certificates for just birth certificates. There's a DMV change, and so we actually limited the hours on those. We were overly having to deal with those. Eric's asked for a water production distribution. We're bringing more wells online. You know, we've got 4 coming on with Spring Canyon. If we get this land, we're going to bring another 10 on. So we're getting a lot more wells. We're going to need more staff. One thing we have to improve upon is procurement. We've got to get better at our procurement activities and having some budget analysts for Joel's sector to do some of that. We're relying a lot more heavily on these superintendents and directors to do those procurement activities. It takes a lot of time away from them. And we got to get better at our spending power. We have a $23 million budget. We can spend better. So that's where that one is. One of the things in Public Works I've been looking at is trying to move from a reactive organization to a proactive organization. And to do that, I'd like to have a staff member work on being on the ground with our capital improvement projects, our projects that are being done in development, and doing asset management. To move from retroactive to proactive, you got to have asset management. And so that position would be kind of a novel idea for this. A lot of the large organizations have it. Admin assistant to be shared between water, wastewater, and solid waste. And then John has asked for 2 maintenance workers in wastewater collection, and then 2 groundskeepers with John. So there's 20 total there. Obviously, not all of those are completed. Any questions? We'll hit on this some more, you guys. I wish we'd have gotten further. Mr. Mayor, if you're okay, can we take a 5 to 10 minute break? I know we're running a little long. If this commissioner take a break and staff.
So I've got 4:33 and probably reconvene at 4:40.
Now we do that without
We're pretty good doing that, isn't it?
Really long.
That's the way you start, you finish there. That's what we do, start, you finish.
What's going on with y'all?
Butch, how are you?
Nothing but smiles, I see.
Well, when I walked in, I thought somebody had passed away. Everybody was so wonderful. Then I realized we were talking about the budget.
I really shouldn't be carrying it.
Yeah.
So you're not fire chief, you're policing. It's been nice. Really? In the minds of folks that are so here. I totally remember those days, huh? I totally do. Let's get one more. He originally told me a couple weeks ago he's going to. He's got to still live in some house like this. Kid to the fire chief. Probably not to the fire chief. Steve and I were talking. Collaborating. Conspiring.
You know what? I'm just smiling and making things go by. So.
Figure out where you get everything else.
When you just have to give them another one.
Oh, yeah, reminder, these highlights. It's just because I'm taking care of Dennis's list. I got home for lunch and my wife was ripping my carpet out.
Over the week, like where they had
you'll be the winner. Still
We talked about it.
That was weird. We were talking about it.
Unless I said take it left or right. Yeah, it didn't look like the fall here, and it's probably changed hands.
Oh, is that there on the south side on the field?
Yeah.
Free ball.
One of these days, maybe we'll get back.
It's clearing out fence road, like, it's just plowing the matter.
I'm not gonna bring that up.
They put it all over, either way, it's kind of rolled off, which.
Oh, we got football for it. Football for it. Hey, can't follow. That's what you say.
It's probably gonna haul it off, it's all put in.
Oh, yeah.
But, no, it's just keep it.
My wife went years ago.
How are you?
Boys
I'm
were
talking to you.
Oh, Wayne. We was drunk plus wall separated two living rooms. So ripped all the sheetrock off that one. She got a bunko and she came in. What in the world? We also mounted a Nerf basketball hoop up under it. You know, we had a place to hang it.
Oh, that's pretty good. Oh, did you? Yeah.
We were having a good.
What do I have to get with this?
I work with him, I'm not gonna say a word. Nah, he just comes around the corner. I think Marvel's doing a wonderful job. I think he's an excellent.
Marvel's playing court security.
He's, three of my favorite people. Yeah, he is. I don't know if he's in my top three, but he's pretty close. He is, all three of mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, we're talking about police officers, right?
So it's most of it. I got the rest of them. I fell asleep twice during the meeting. So I was with my grandson. We were watching his fire. What are your He's free.
Got you figured out
Yeah,
already.
you did. I know. That was just too funny. I couldn't stop laughing. So
Oh, I understand.
I've told everybody, they're going, they don't even laugh. They're going, and?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had that same thought. I think when you go
Last 2 years have been busy.
If you go, you're really.
We got something to discuss.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Danny, we'll see you later. We got business to take care of.
Tacos?
Yes, they're
Patio's open, you gotta go check it out.
We gotta go,
Good alcohol inspection. Alcohol inspection.
Hey, me and Craig's out. We're gonna go do a site inspection.
Yeah, 2:30 there.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have that.
That's why I said it's a
Be
site
done by
inspection.
5. You don't care, you know.
He's no help at all.
No, he didn't help you a bit.
I know. The new texture.
That's amazing. How are you?
You all right, sir?
Good. Good to see you. Where did I see you at the other day?
It's probably on front of the house.
I'm sorry. That's it. That's it. Yep. Yep. Speaking of, I'm surprised there was any food left.
Oh, you over there, I can live in your big rig. I don't know.
Shoot crap about the gun club.
Wow.
It's like a terrible.
Somebody think I was sick here out there?
Supposed to.
No, I don't want Marvel.
Did y'all go down to EDC Friday? Friday. I was on Friday up there. Yes, I saw them load up the names.
Saturday, Thursday.
He's asked a couple times.
Balcony creeps in there.
Wednesday.
They got a cup like this, and they're walking 6 miles.
And it's about a quarter full.
But it's about like this. All right. Well, that's nearly 16 ounces.
that'll get you there, right?
Yeah, so I'm telling them.
We're back open now.
I have no option.
Yeah, but they're not saying all that stuff.
Actually, I don't care.
That makes the day better.
Some of ours will hurry. Biggest.
They just told me to read it all.
Seniors do that. They used to do. Exactly. She was sexy.
Gretchen, are we good? Are we still live?
Yes, sir.
All right, it is 4:44, and at this time we will call the regular meeting of the King City Commission to order. With that, Mayor Pro Tem, if you can do this communication.
Y'all approve this? Heavenly Father, we just thank you for all that you do for us, Father. We thank you for the continued protection of the men and women that work for the city of Canyon and serve us, Father. And Father, we also thank you for the continued protection of the citizens that those employees serve. Father, just continue to be with us as we make decisions for the future of our city, and just be with us and forgive us when we mess it up. In Christ's name, I pray. Amen.
All right, and if you would join me as much as I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, that takes us to the approval of the minutes of the meeting of July 19th, 2021.
No changes, I move we approve.
Second. Got a motion and a second to approve minutes as written. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. All right, that takes us to public comment. Comments from interested citizens.
Nobody has signed in yet.
I had a citizen come earlier, wants to have an agenda item next time for continued donation of water for the Kiwanis Community Garden. So he came by and saw me earlier today, so I'll put it on the agenda for discussion next week, or next meeting.
All right, item number 6 is consider and take appropriate action on second and final reading of resolution number 25-2021, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Canyon approving a project funding agreement between Texas Panhandle Heritage Foundation and Canyon Economic Development Corporation relating to quality of life enhancements for area residents. Don.
Good afternoon. We received a request on May the 13th from the Panhandle Heritage Foundation for an upgrade to their audio system for a total of $210,000. The MS Doss and the Harrington Foundation each gave them $75,000, leaving a balance of $60,000. asked us to cover that, which we were glad to do. This is for stage microphones front of the house as well as reach out programs. We had a public hearing on June the 10th. There was no opposition to the funding project. This is the second reading.
Make a motion to approve resolution 25-2021.
Second. Have a motion second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, takes us to item number 7, to consider and take appropriate action on second and final reading of resolution number 26-2021, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Canyon approving a project funding agreement between Ruthets LLC and Canyon Economic Development Corporation relating to business retention and expansion.
This was a May 13th meeting also, and it's a funding request from Avery Pinkerton and Colette Lane, and they own Ruthets. And they are asking us to assist in relocation of their business to a larger property. And it's 1,400 square feet, not 14,000 square feet. Big difference there. The total project cost is $84,000, and the CDs committed $30,000 to the project. We had our public hearing on June the 10th. There was no opposition for the funding. This is the second reading.
I move that we adopt resolution number 26-2020.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the resolution, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Okay, item number 8, to consider and take appropriate action on approval of Canyon Economic Development Corporation 2021-2022 annual budget. Yep.
Good afternoon. This is our budget proposed budget for this year. Our EDC worked on this budget for 2 meetings, and they approved the budget to pass on to the City Commission for approval at our July 15th meeting. Not much has changed, or except the last year we had a new employee, and so it was kind of set aside over here because we just really didn't know for sure. So that new employee is worked into the salaries at the top, at that one large amount. We had reduced our travel expense because of COVID. Everybody now has gotten used to Zoom, and conferences are really just virtual, basically. And so we reduced that amount. We increased our insurance because we have 7 properties, and our bill runs about $16,000 for those 7 properties. So anyway, that's all. It's really remarkable change. And then we still have the Small Business Assistance Program, $43,786 balance as of June 30th. Ruthets, we're going to tap into that, and then when they decided to really go into that building and did a partnership with the property owner, then they realized that they wanted to do more, and then also on that, their lease with the property owner is that they have first right of refusal on that property, so it's a good investment for us.
There's a typo in your caption at the top of the budget.
Don't tell me that.
Evelyn, your
Just
salaries
wait.
have gone up. They went up 40,000 last year, and now another 60 this year. So what? So about 100,000 over 2 years. So there's a part-time position, and then what all?
Yes, and we pay the new position that I hired beginning this first year. The EDC voted at one of their board members to totally fund her 100% that position. So that is one reason why it went up. And then also,
Can you remind us what that new position is doing?
that new position is administrative assistant, and then she is managing the EDC project. So she monitors when we need to write a check, when we need to have a meeting, when we need verification of how their sales are going, everything that pertains to their funding agreements. Which most funding agreements are not the same. But she's managing those projects and doing a really, really good job.
So that was the 40,000 last year?
Yes, we probably put 40,000 in last year, 55,874. And then remember on, Percy and I, the city pays 25% of that, so 75%. So that would be the variance. And last year on the budget, I didn't have the numbers on the personnel until late. And so we got them up, so that could be account for some of the difference.
So then the increase of 60,000 this year, was that what?
Or that's making up, I think, the gross, we were under
Right.
estimating last year.
On the cost of this position?
Correct. The way that works is everyone bills every month with Joel, so we do it, isn't that right, everyone?
Yes. We reimburse in arrears, so, and Joel invoices us each month for that.
We've only got the expense side of the budget, so I guess, I know we've got it over here somewhere.
We did not ever create a budget for the projects because early on, the board determined not to lock ourselves into a certain amount of money. And so Jim Bryan does that cash flow spreadsheet for us, which helps us determine and we really watch our cash. I think you'll see that. I provide that for you when I did the annual report in October.
I was just wondering what, the 367,000 is percentage-wise, how much left over is for projects? And it looks like, projected about 990,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know we keep our administrative cost is down, it's like 21%. I usually keep it around that, which that's our.
In comparison to the revenues.
Yeah.
It would be about a third or something.
And also, this year, our rents from our tenants are about $8,600 a month. So it pays,
So additional
it services our debt.
I make a motion to approve the EDC budget.
It is, and that's why, questions in my mind, how much is going to administration versus.
For the last 3 years before that, it was, 13, 10, just 15.
So this person's already hired though, is that our actual
Yes.
expenses? I mean, the way
Yeah,
we're actually put in there right now, that's what it's.
There's 3 of them. Evelyn, Brittany, and Kirsty.
Does anybody want to make a second?
did discuss that in the budget this last go around. The EDC would fund that with 100% CEDC proceeds. Because Evelyn and Kirsty are funded 25/75, and those are still going as is. The new person is not funded out of city funds, out of the EDC revenue.
So I guess the question is for the 2021 budget, where's that money coming from? If she's already hired.
It's coming out of the EDC.
Just unbudgeted.
It was budgeted, it wasn't budgeted as high, but we're getting 100% reimbursed. They've run in arrears with us. Joel will invoice their Evelyn, Kirsty, and Brittany's salary, and it's 75/25 for the first two, and 100% for the last one. So we're getting the money back for that. So their sales tax revenue is paying for that person from salary all the way to their benefits. Correct. That's correct.
I think that number's overstated in the budget. That's the full cost, that's 100% of the cost for those three positions.
Salaries, benefits.
Their part of it is $216,000. I'm guessing that's probably what was budgeted in prior years, was their 75% of the total.
That is correct.
Can you say that number again, Joel?
The total cost that we got projected for those three positions is $267,000. They're 75% of Evelyn's and Kirsty's, and 100% of Brittany's is $216,000.
So
therefore
it's apples to apples for instead of the 268 is that? Okay.
And we're only paying $50,000 for salaries out of the city's salary. City budget.
That would be a lot different. I mean, it looks like here, there's another $60,000 jump for this year, but that's not really the case. It's really just going up 8,000.
That is my mistake, so, I can correct that, show it to the, EDC board at our next meeting next week, and we can amend that budget, if you want me to bring this back then.
Commissioner, what do you think?
You know, it probably would be good either way, bring it back as corrected or, to come back with us.
The other piece of Evelyn's budget is in the main city budget too. So she's got the EDC budget, and she has a piece in the other budget, the city budget. So there's multiple players on here. The 25%, as Joel mentioned, is in the city's budget.
You know what, Evelyn, maybe it's cleaner just to bring it back with that actual
Okay.
number next time.
Okay, I can do that.
216, that would look like it. So,
It will, sorry about
Okay.
that, I should have caught that.
But you finished your budget for the city.
Yeah.
side. Why don't you just bring that with me so they can see the two side by side?
Okay, I can do that.
That probably will help show.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
So you do withdraw your motion?
It never got seconded.
So we died on it. Times past, Gretchen, that the motion dies. Is there a required amount of time for a motion to die?
If 30 more seconds.
Play the clock. Actually, this time.
all right, then we will move on to item number 9. Consider and take appropriate action on ordinance number 1138, ordinance amending the City of Canyon, Texas Code of Ordinances, Chapter 37, Master Schedule of Charges and Fees, providing for the addition of new and amendment of certain other fees and charges, providing a repealing clause, providing a severability clause for publication and effective date. Don?
As we talked about during our work session, we're coming forward with our master schedule of charges and fees. Once again, something we started a year ago, enables us to put all our fees together in one location, easier for anyone to find on our website, easier to find in our budget, and just easier for users. What we did was about 2 months ago, I put out this list from last year to all department heads, gave everybody the opportunity to respond. Then some of them responded electronically, then we talked through those fees to determine whether those were where we wanted to go or not. Of course, you heard from Danny, his fee suggestions are associated with the fact that the state has taken away some loss because we're not able to charge. And so we have spread those fees around, and that's kind of where we are. I think we had a good discussion during the work session on that. So if you have any questions, Danny would be more than happy to answer, or I can answer those that he can't.
Okay, I feel like those fee adjustments are more than fair. I would move we adopt ordinance number 1138, amending the 2021-2022 master schedule charge fees.
Second. Have a motion and second. Is there any further discussion? I would like to throw out there, I think it would be a big benefit if on that same spreadsheet we could include the date of the last change of those fees and maybe where they were at, if that's a possibility. I think that just gives us a better feel for where we're at and where we're going.
We could keep a second document. I wouldn't necessarily see keeping that for our budget document, keeping that, because that would be, as Joe stated earlier, it would get unusable, too many columns. But we could try to start doing that as of this date with the things, so that we'll come forward with you all to give you a general idea of when those were.
I think that'd be fun.
We can do that. You bet.
Then we do have a motion second. All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 10, consider and take appropriate action on resolution number 33-2021, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Canyon, Texas, establishing a special revenue fund known as Parks Donation Fund and internal service funds known as the Canyon Investment Program Funds, general and utility golf, and other matters properly relating thereto. Joe?
Thank you. So this resolution is trying to accomplish three things at once. First of all is the special revenue fund. This is something Joe brought to the city last year. We've given customers, utility customers, the opportunity to give a donation for parks. And that donation would be maintained separately in this fund and would be available over time as it accumulated for doing parks improvement projects. But we need to segregate that and maintain that in its own fund as required by accounting rules. The other two funds have to do with the CIP program that we've been talking about over the past several months. And we're proposing that we establish two funds. One would be for general fund projects, the other would be for enterprise type projects. So golf course, utility department, or utility fund projects. And these would be funded, as we've discussed, with our reserve policy at the end of the year when we do the assessment on that. And any excess that we have would transfer over to one of these two funds to be available for the CIP projects. They're selected based on the scoring that we heard last meeting, as well as other revenue streams, grants, or financing. So this is necessary in order to establish these three funds.
Park donations $2 or $4 per month, and it's completely voluntary. That's anticipated. I talked to Brian. It's anticipated that to be used as capital, like playgrounds, pavilions, like assets, not anything like that. Sidewalks, bike paths, $3 on the ground. And it's completely voluntary to our ratepayers, so they don't have to pay if they want to. So they'll have an option to pay $2 or $4 a month. I know Brian's excited.
More questions for Joel? Or
So moved. Brian's excited about it, I'll second.
Have a motion and second to approve resolution number 33-2021. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Joe. All right, item number 11, bear with me. It is consider and take appropriate action on resolution number 32-2021. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Canyon, Texas, approving a negotiated settlement between the Executive Committee of Cities served by Atmos West Texas Cities and Atmos Energy Corp. West Texas Division regarding the company's 2021 rate review mechanism filing, declaring existing rates to be unreasonable, adopting tariffs that reflect rate adjustments consistent with the negotiated settlement, finding the rates to be set by the attached settlement tariffs to be just and reasonable and in the public interest, approving an attached exhibit establishing a benchmark for pensions and retiree medical benefits, approving an attached exhibit regarding amortization of regulatory liability, requiring the company to reimburse cities reasonable rate-making expenses, determining that this resolution was passed in accordance with the requirements of the Texas Open Meetings Act, adopting a savings clause, declaring an effective date, requiring delivery of this resolution to the company and the city's legal counsel. Joe?
Gretchen, I think we need that reread, right? You just get all that.
I think I need this word.
I like when Gretchen has to read that whole 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Recorded. You know, just like Excel, we have our own legal counsel that helps us with rate negotiations, and we join the other consortium of cities, and we cities unite together to basically challenge these rate increases. As you all know, we have original jurisdiction for any rate increases for private utilities, which excludes cable. So Randy Ray's favorite. We can't say anything about cable. The only ones we can do are gas and electricity. Being this is gas is an increase, they negotiated down a rate that would be 7 cents more per month on the building tax. So basically, that's what it ended up being. And there's plenty of details if you need to read them in the agenda memo that I will not bore you with. But if you want to, I would be glad to read some more details to you. So it's just a rate review mechanism as we've had in the past. An additional revenue amount they'll get from new tariffs from Atmos is about $152,000 for a 12 months period, with only 7 cents per month being affected on our bills. So that's pretty good. I will warn y'all, there is a gas, what do they call it, a gas
Rate case.
Yeah, but it's on the fuel cost, and they had called it something I'd never heard of before, but it's coming. I saw it today for Weather Storm Uri, or the big storm, the big winter storm.
Snow that?
Yeah, whatever we're calling it. I know that's coming.
It's not investigated.
Other than that, I have no other details on this other than what's been put in there, and I don't want to bore you with that. So, could recommend passage of this.
I make a motion we approve ordinance 32-2021.
Resolution.
Having a motion and second, is there any further discussion?
We amend the motion to a resolution and not ordinance, please.
That's a nice title.
Resolution. I amend my motion to say resolution.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All in favor of the motion by amended or restated, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
Who was the second?
Commissioner Ray. All right, that takes us to item number 12. Consider and take appropriate action on meeting dates for September and October 2021. So, Gretchen, are you running with this?
Setting the calendar. Due to Labor Day, we will not meet on Monday, the 6th of September, because the city is closed. Thank y'all very much. But to stay within the budget calendar and get this budget adopted, we do need to meet on Tuesday, September 7th. So we're proposing that. Then we'll have our regular meeting, the September 20th, which is where you will adopt the budget.
The
on
tax rate.
Tax rate?
Yeah, budget's adopted, I think, on 7.
Right. And then we're proposing to cancel the meeting for Monday, October 4th. That's a really, everyone, we have a lot of staff that are members of committees and things that need to go to TML, and then several of you are going. Y'all will leave, everybody will leave on Tuesday, so we're proposing to cancel that meeting on the 4th of October and give you guys a break with, after all the hours for budget, which we appreciate, so we meet again on the 18th.
Any issues with canceling that October 4th meeting, just to have a break from budget and, because we're traveling down that same week for TML annual conference. Is that okay, everyone?
Yeah.
If you all think it works, yeah.
I think it will.
Yeah, we want to give you all a break more than
That's
anything.
typical. We usually do that over the years, so.
I suspect we're going to have at least a work session or two scheduled next year for budget, so.
So if you guys are okay with that, I just need y'all to say okay.
Joe, why don't you talk a little bit more then on if we did have another work session, what would that look like?
Yeah, I think I've got another one scheduled for next August meeting. We might have to, 16. We might need one before then, or we might need one after. I think I need to get with Joel and John to calculate that. I didn't get through the capital improvement items, and that was a big section. And so we need to discuss those, and then I need to start marking through them. So we might have one between now and the 16th if possible. So, if it's okay, I know going outside of Mondays, we could do it. We could do it tonight. We could do it next week tonight if we wanted to, or we don't have to be on Mondays. We can meet some other day. What would be good next week for y'all to meet and have a second work session, finish up what we didn't finish today?
Or you could start earlier on the 16th.
Yeah, we could start earlier on the 16th. I prefer to do it. My personal preference would be next week. I'm pretty flexible, so.
If we did it next week, could we start a little later,
Yeah.
like 4 o'clock or 4:30?
We do have planning and zoning meeting. That's the only thing. We have planning and zoning commission at 4, and it should be over about 4:30, Danny, you think?
4:35.
4:30 or 5. That's the only thing conflicting.
Is it in
Yes,
here?
sir, they meet in here.
We have a downtown meeting
Yeah,
on Monday, so.
correct, Monday.
Okay, Monday.
So Monday might be bad, so there's a downtown meeting. Yeah, that's right. So the 10th is, good, well, no, 10th. Wednesday's okay, but it's church night. I'm good Thursday, I'm out of town Friday.
Thursday would have to be early. I think we do early for Thursday.
Mr. Ray, how's your classroom schedule look for Thursday?
What time are we talking?
I don't know.
As long as we're finished before 10.
I think we could do another hour and a half. Joel and John would definitely get us done for what we have. I don't think we could add any more. I at least want to get through what we have.
8:30, and we'll be out at 10.
Yeah, does that work, and we're out by 10? Or do we need to be out by 9:30?
We're gonna be out by 9:30.
So we started at 8.
Let's do 8:15. 8:15 gives everybody some better hours.
Gretchen sent out.
Of course.
Can you send out an invite?
I'm sorry.
Would you send out an
Yes,
invite?
sir. So Thursday at 8:15.
To 12.
Breakfast included?
Breakfast included. Oh, yeah, there you go, Paul, see, I'm looking out now. Yeah, biscuits and gravy.
Oh, no, I
Where's
think
Craig?
Mr. Green
Where's
bar.
Craig? He makes some pretty good biscuits and gravy the other day. Might need you to step up.
I don't believe that.
He did good, made some good biscuits and gravy the other day. 8:15 to 12, and we'll get out at 9:30, Cody, does that work? Gretchen, can you make a note to send out calendar invites? Perfect.
I just saw something. We had got to be done by no later than 9. I need to be by 9:15. Is that possible?
We can do that, yeah. I feel good. If we start at 8:15, I think we can do it in 60 minutes, you guys. We just gotta, so, okay, let's just start at 8 then. Let's start at 8.
We might reach out to Kelsey about this. She's missed a pretty big
she did watch. She said she would watch it. Let's do 8 then, Gretchen, instead, so we'll go from there. Maybe we can find some breakfast options. So just plan on eating breakfast together. Thursday, 12.
Good deal. That now takes us to item number 13, executive session pursuant to 551.071, consultation with attorney, 551.072, deliberations about real property, and 551.074, personnel matters, city attorney, annual evaluation. And with that, I have 5:19, and we will retire into exec session.
I
Yeah.
need you to sign that atlas resolution.
We'll do that. I think they're August 12th, so that's. September 12th, that'd be. Hey,
you gave you the credit.